In the glittering world of royalty, where dreams are woven into the fabric of history, two women emerged as modern-day icons: Princess Diana and Meghan Markle. Their tales, separated by decades, mirror each other in uncanny ways.
I, Diana Francis.
I, Diana Francis.
Take thee, Charles Philip Arthur George.
Take thee, Philip Charles Arthur George.
July 29, 1981. Lady Diana Spencer, a shy teacher, marries Prince Charles. The world watches, captivated by the fairy tale. May 19, 2018. Meghan Markle, an accomplished actress and humanitarian, weds Prince Harry. The world celebrates the union of modernity and tradition. With her charisma and grace, Meghan brought a fresh chapter to the monarchy's storied history. But beneath the surface of these fairy tales lurked a harsh reality. The relentless and often brutal media played a pivotal role in shaping public perception. The weight of tradition bore heavily on both women. Where did the royal fairy tale go wrong for Diana and Meghan? What do their stories tell us about the institution of monarchy and the society that upholds it? The fairy tale image demands perfection, a standard impossible to maintain.
In the summer of 1980, the Queen told me that a young girl was coming to stay for the weekend.
Charles did give us a hint himself. He said we wouldn't have to wait too long.
Careful.
He said we wouldn't have to wait too long. Was he completely off beam? Was he?
Sorry.
Was he completely off beam when he said we wouldn't have to wait too long?
No.
When I joined Buckingham Palace way back in 1976, it was already rumoured that Prince of Wales would be marrying somebody like Princess Mary Astrid or Amanda Knatchbull. There were rumours that he would be marrying somebody else. There were always suitors around Prince Charles. He was the most eligible bachelor in the world at that time, heir to the throne of England. So he was never short of female companions. I saw him occasionally with the Queen. He'd stay at Buckingham Palace. His suite of rooms were at the palace. He had his own valet. He had his own household. And he was very independent. And really, he was searching for someone who could provide him with an heir and a spare. That was his main priority. He was getting old. And the Queen had said to him, "Isn't it about time you settled down, Charles? Isn't it about time you made us grandparents?"
Well, Princess Diana was the daughter of an earl. Her father was Lord Spencer, and he was later Viscount Althorp. They had a house on the Sandringham estate, and then when Diana's grandfather died, they moved to the family stately home, Althorp. And the Spencer family were quite an ancient aristocratic family, and Diana was very proud of her heritage. I mean, they were actually probably grander than the royal family. Well, Diana Spencer, as she was, is probably one of the most insecure people I'd ever met. She was also a real mixture of being completely naive and yet worldly wise. She was always different, so she was always fascinating.
In February 1981, the waiting was over. Buckingham Palace announced that Prince Charles and Lady Diana were engaged. The ring was a sapphire surrounded by diamonds. The couple looked happy and relaxed, delighted, like everyone else, that a wedding would take place. Earl Spencer and Lady Diana's stepmother celebrated among the crowds outside the palace gates. Inside, Lady Diana was facing up to a future she could hardly have dreamt of.
I personally think that Diana fell in love with Prince Charles. It's obvious to me that she was a young, naive girl and she fell in love with the prince. Now, if you watch that piece of footage when Prince Charles is asked, "Are you in love, sir?" Princess Diana's beaming.
And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
Well, it
You can
obviously
put your own
means,
interpretation.
obviously means two very happy people.
Yes.
Once
You can-
again,
as you can see.
congratulations.
Well, from us, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Very kind.
And she looks at him as if to say, "What are you talking about? Don't you know what love is?" That was the problem from the beginning. Charles didn't really know what love was.
Well, the cracks in their relationship, I think they began to show very quickly. Because Diana didn't understand. I mean, after she became engaged to Prince Charles, he never seemed to be around. He was always so busy. And she was moved into Buckingham Palace, and she had her own apartment there, and he was sort of down the corridor. And she was absolutely on her own. I mean, a friend of mine actually was her footman and told me a lot about her at the time. And she was very lonely. She didn't feel she could have her girlfriends there. And I mean, Buckingham Palace is quite a strange place for a teenage girl to be incarcerated, which is really what she was. I think Diana had terrible jitters on her wedding day. In fact, the night before, she'd wanted to get out of the whole thing. And she'd had a sort of funny, jokey evening with her sisters. And they said, "You can't get out of it now, your face is on the tea towels." And that made her laugh. But she'd discovered about Camilla. She discovered that Charles was giving her gifts. And she didn't know the half of it, but she knew that Camilla was a very important person in her fiancé's life. And she said she became obsessed.
I, Diana Francis,
I, Diana Francis,
take thee, Charles Philip Arthur George,
take thee, Philip Charles Arthur George,
to my wedded husband,
my wedded husband,
to have and to hold,
to have and to hold,
from this day forward,
this day forward,
according to God's holy law,
according to God's holy law,
and thereto I give thee my troth.
and thereto I give thee my troth.
I remember the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer very well because I was at Buckingham Palace. She says, "But did you ever look at the footage of that?" She says, "Next time you look at it, watch me." She says, "Can't you see me looking from side to side? Can you see me doing that? Do you know what I'm doing? I'm looking for her. I'm looking for Camilla." And she was there. She was even at my wedding. So this spectre of Camilla was always there in the princess's life.
In 2016, Misha Nonu, a mutual friend and fashion designer, set up Prince Harry and Meghan Markle on a blind date. They kept their relationship very private for a few months, until the press caught wind of it. The royal was reportedly happier than he has been for many years.
We were introduced actually by a mutual friend. It was through her, and then we met once and then twice back to back, 2 dates in London last July.
Yes.
Beginning of July.
They had their first date at Soho House in London in 2016. And then, of course, you know, with Meghan living and working at the time in Toronto in Canada, where she was filming Suits, and Harry being based in London, they realised they would have to really go out their way to make time for each other very quickly. So within a few weeks of that first date, they were on holiday together in Botswana.
Prince Harry had dated a string really, of beautiful English socialites. They tended to be blonde and willowy, very great backgrounds, wealthy families, went to the right schools. However, what Meghan brought to the equation was a lot of humanitarian work that Harry's ex-girlfriends just couldn't even touch with a 10-foot pole. Meghan had actually worked for the UN. She'd gone on missions and trips to support women and children in the developing world. The possibility of meeting someone who was equally passionate and engaged about changing the world and helping other people was extremely attractive to Harry. I think if you watch the engagement interview that Harry and Meghan did on BBC, and they talk about their first meeting and how they instantly connected, it's apparent that yes, there was a mutual attraction, but it went far beyond the physical. Meghan and Harry were attracted to what each other believed in and what each other wanted to do in the world.
The pair made their first public appearance together since avoiding the spotlight for so long at the 2017 Invictus Games in Toronto, even showing affection as the two sat front row to watch wheelchair tennis.
I think Meghan had quite a difficult initial period after their relationship was confirmed, and we know this because Harry issued a statement defending her and sort of warning people off. She described it as disheartening and discriminatory, but Harry himself mentioned sort of racial undertones, which is pretty upsetting for anyone concerned. And I think, it is a difficult situation when you're thrust into the glare of media interest. The royal family garner a huge amount of attention, and we know that they're not necessarily delighted by it, but they work closely with the media to get their messages across. But I think nothing prepared Harry and Meghan for the wave of interest that followed the announcement of their relationship.
On November 27, 2017, it was confirmed by Kensington Palace that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry were engaged. The romantic moment occurred when the pair were cooking a quiet dinner at home. Whilst most people get parental permission to marry their significant other, Prince Harry had an additional person to please before he walked down the aisle. In a letter to the Privy Council advisors, the Queen expressed her wedding well wishes to Meghan and Harry, giving them the royal seal of approval.
And Buckingham Palace issued a statement saying the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh are delighted for the couple and wish them every happiness.
And the engagement has the approval of her future father-in-law.
No, we're thrilled, thank you very much, to both of them. I hope they'll be very happy indeed.
Meghan, despite her background as a successful actress, was not prepared for the level and nature of media scrutiny that was to come.
There's a misconception that because I have worked in the entertainment industry that this would be something I would be familiar with. But even though I'd been on my show for, 6 years at that point, and working before that, I've never been part of tabloid culture. I've never been in pop culture to that degree, and lived a relatively quiet life, even though I focused so much on my job. And so that was a really stark difference out of the gate. But, and I think we were just hit so hard at the beginning with a lot of mistruths that I made the choice to not read anything, positive or negative. It just didn't make sense, and instead we focused all of our energies just on nurturing our relationship.
On us, yeah.
On us.
There is no doubt that when anybody marries into the royal family, the media immediately start looking into the background and the family of that person. I mean, with Meghan, it was quite easy because she'd been very public on social media and on the internet. She'd spoken about her biracial background, the fact that her ancestors were slaves. She'd spoken extensively about her charity work as well. So we had a really quite graphic picture of the type of woman she was, a feminist, somebody who believed in speaking out about her mixed race background. And I think that all of this actually was positive, in my opinion, because it gave the media a platform on which they could base their stories.
Meghan Markle is a California girl. In fact, her dad, Thomas, was in the film industry. He worked on set. And one of Meghan's earliest memories, actually, and what she says inspired her to be an actress, was being on set of the show Married with Children, a show that her dad worked on for years as a lighting director, I believe. Meghan grew up very much, not so much in the industry, but close, kind of on the periphery of show business. I think she got a real taste of it from a very early age.
But now that it is all official, Prince Harry, do you have that sense that the combination of the two of you, your different backgrounds, that you together represent something new for the royal family?
I don't know if it's something new. I think it's, you know, it's a, for me, it's an added member of the family. It's another team player as part of the bigger team. And, you know, for all of us, all we want to do is be able to carry out the right engagements, carry out our work, and try and encourage others and the younger generation to be able to see the world in the correct sense, rather than perhaps having a distorted view. So, you know, the fact that I fell in love with Meghan so incredibly quickly was a sort of confirmation to me that everything, all the stars were aligned, everything was just perfect. It was this beautiful woman just sort of literally tripped and fell into my life. I fell into her life.
Meghan and Harry said "I do" at Windsor's St George's Chapel, in front of 600 guests and millions of viewers, in one of the most anticipated weddings of our generation.
I think after Harry was born, the relationship seriously broke down. It just hadn't worked out like both of them expected. And even before the wedding, Diana had serious doubts, and so did Charles. Charles's friends, his close friends, warned him, this is not going to work, Charles. She's too young, she's too naive, and you know, you're an imaginary prince. She doesn't know you at all.
Diana confronted Camilla about her adulterous affair with Charles in 1989, while they were both attending a birthday celebration for Camilla's sister, Annabelle Elliott.
I think Diana was terrified. It was a big party probably on 3 or 4 floors, and she looked around, where's Charles, where's Charles? And then she realised that he must be downstairs on the lower level in the sort of basement area. And she went down there, and there they were. She just confronted Camilla and said, you know, I'm not stupid, I know what's going on. Diana was shaking with fear and rage. On the way back in the car, she was just in hysterical tears. And her protection officer, Ken Worf, was with her, and so he confirms all this, that she just sobbed all the way home, and I don't think Charles said a word.
But I think that was the turning point, really, of the relationship, because, you know, soon thereafter, I think Diana had then given up any hope of a reconciliation.
In the summer of '92, a recording of Diana speaking to one of her friends, who actually was her lover, James Gilby, appeared in one of the newspapers. The transcript of this recording was unbelievable.
Frankie said to me today, she said, I sat next to Nigel Haber the other day and all we could talk about was you. And I said, Frankie, how awful for you? She said, oh, don't worry, the Admiration Club. A lot of people talk to her about me, which she can't help.
No.
Her at all.
I tell you, like, I think she's desperate to tag on to your coattails.
Well, she can't.
No, she absolutely can't. I need to make that quite clear.
If you want to be like me, you've got to suffer.
It was an extraordinary, explosive moment. And really, there was very little that the Queen could do after that.
Over time, her struggles with bulimia and depression became increasingly difficult to hide, and as her marriage began to deteriorate, she eventually spoke candidly about the divorce and her hardships on television, something the royals had never done before.
You inflict it upon yourself because your self-esteem is at a low ebb and you don't think you're worthy or valuable. You fill your stomach up 4 or 5 times a day, some do it more, and it gives you a feeling of comfort. It's like having a pair of arms around you, but it's temporary. Then you're disgusted at the bloatedness of your stomach, and then you bring it all up again.
The only secret Diana ever kept from me was the Martin Bashir interview for Panorama. I was sent home on a Sunday afternoon. Strange, I thought. Why would she be sending me home? Go and spend some time with your family. I'm doing nothing this afternoon. Don't worry about me. The next morning I came to work. I noticed all the furniture had been moved. Why have you moved the furniture? It's not in the same place. I had a dance class. I had to move the furniture out of the way just so that we could exercise. Strange, very strange. She avoided me for the next 2 days, never spoke to me, and then she told me that she'd made a recording with Martin Bashir for Panorama. What have you said? Well, I just put the record straight, she said.
I think every strong woman in history has had to walk down a similar path, and I think it's the strength that causes the confusion and the fear. Why is she strong? Where does she get it from? Where is she taking it? Where is she going to use it?
Something like 31 million people stopped in their tracks on that Monday night and couldn't believe what they were seeing. The Princess of Wales bearing her heart on national television. We couldn't take our eyes away from it. We couldn't believe what we were hearing.
Do you think Mrs. Parker Bowles was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage?
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
As the pressures of royal life intensified, Harry and Meghan found themselves increasingly at odds with the relentless media scrutiny and the constraints of their roles. The couple had expressed growing concerns over their privacy and mental health, particularly after the birth of their son, Archie, in 2019. Behind the scenes, tensions within the royal family also mounted as Harry and Meghan sought to carve out a more independent path that aligned with their values and vision for the future. These underlying issues culminated in their decision, announced in January 2020, to step back from their senior royal duties and seek financial independence. On January 13, 2020, royal watchers were on the edge of their seats as Harry and Meghan entered what was infamously called a crisis meeting with Her Majesty the Queen, Prince Charles, and Prince William. The royal family's future was hanging on the outcome of this critical talk. After several tense hours, Buckingham Palace announced with a heavy heart that arrangements had been reached for Harry and Meghan to leave royal duties behind and pursue an independent future. Public reaction was divided, to say the least. While some wished the couple nothing but happiness and success, others felt resentment in their choice to abandon crown and country. There's no doubt that the reaction inside the palace was just as divided. The now free couple announced a new future of financial independence, stepping back from the royal family, but insisted they would continue to support their causes and Her Majesty the Queen. They shared plans to split their time between North America and the UK.
All the way through this relationship, we've seen examples of Harry trying to protect Meghan from the scrutiny. You have to remember, Meghan comes in the legacy of Princess Diana, and Harry saw the way his mother was treated by the press. And I think he's very keenly aware of how that happened and ensuring that that doesn't happen to Meghan. The decision to move away from central London to go to Frogmore Cottage and move to Windsor is very much about protecting Meghan. You know, they had just redecorated the place in Kensington. They had just done it up the way they wanted to when they announced they were actually decamping and moving to Windsor. By moving to Windsor, Harry and Meghan are hoping to preserve some semblance of normalcy for themselves and for their child. Even if you look at the birth of the new baby, whereas Kate Middleton was trotted out in hosiery and full makeup just hours after delivering her babies. Meghan said from the beginning, I won't be doing that. They didn't even announce she was in labor until after the baby was safely born. All the way through the birth, even in the last weeks of her pregnancy, Meghan was not seen. And all the way through her birth, Meghan has maintained a determination, along with Harry, to keep certain things private, to keep protected their family. And they are not following the royal script. They are consistently deviating from what's been done before. And some people think it's admirable and some people think it's not. But ultimately, Meghan and Harry are doing things their own way.
At this point, the monarchy was really worried about what Diana might say. She was unpredictable, and they did not like that.
The Queen realised that this couldn't go on because it was taking up all the news, and there were important things happening. The monarchy has no power; they only have influence, and at this moment, it was their shenanigans that were making the news, which is completely wrong. And she was very concerned about the institution of the monarchy with all this scandal going on. She thought there's only one thing to do, and the Queen is head of the church, and the last thing she wants is a divorce. And so she must have thought about it very, very carefully and decided that that was the only way forward. So she basically ordered them to divorce.
After her divorce, Diana retained the double apartment on the north side of Kensington Palace that she had shared with Charles. She also moved her offices to Kensington Palace, but was permitted to use the state apartments at St. James's Palace. Diana was also offered security by the Metropolitan Police's Royalty Protection Group, which she benefited from while travelling with her sons. However, she refused it in the final years of her life to distance herself from the royal family.
Yeah, so in this discussion, I said, look, there's only one piece of advice that I could give, and that's, look, whilst our security and whilst having us around you has sometimes been invasive, and I accept that, we've allowed you some privacy, and, we've had fun at the same time, and, that's how it is. So I don't know what you're going to do, but look, whatever you do, whether you work anywhere in the world, another country, you will always be Diana. Sadly, she didn't listen. And I think that decision on her part ultimately led to her tragic death in Paris in 1997. And there's only one person that, in my view, that could have changed those course of events. Had Her Majesty the Queen insisted that Diana retain that security, then I'm convinced that her death would never have happened.
Diana had seen a friend's spouse who was being treated for surgery problems at the Royal Brompton Hospital in September 1995. She met Hasnat Khan, a cardiac surgeon, when she was there and immediately fell in love with him.
Towards the end of her life, of course, she found her soulmate. Her soulmate was Hasnat Khan. Hasnat Khan had been the princess's companion for over 2 years. Nobody knew about Hasnat Khan. That was not played out on the world stage. I was the one that went out with my car, brought people back to Kensington Palace in the back seat of my car underneath a blanket, just to give the princess some love. All she was ever looking for was to be loved. She used to say to me, all I ever want, Paul, is a man to put their arms around me and say, I love you. That's not too much to ask, is it? And that's what she was searching for.
Diana, when she came to Pakistan, this was a country that she had fond memories of, wasn't it?
Yes, I think she enjoyed her time here. She really liked the days she spent here, I think.
And in fact, Diana introduced William and Harry to Hasnat Khan, because in the princess's eyes, Hasnat was the man she was going to marry. So better the boys get used to him.
But he was very, very worried that the press would get hold of it, and he couldn't deal with that.
Although she was still adored and a lucrative subject for editors, Diana had overstayed her welcome in the British media. She could do no wrong when she was married to Charles, and afterwards when he was held responsible for the dissolution of the marriage. In the years following, Diana was accused of twisting the story too much in her favor and lying on several counts. Press scrutiny and ridicule were a small price to divert attention away from her romance with Hasnat. However, his schedule began to frustrate Diana, who would call multiple times when Khan was in surgery, leaving messages under false names, such as Dr. Armani. Her late-night visits made hospital administrators worry about press intrusion.
The best thing what I thought we could do is stop reading about it. And if I would read something and that would be contradictory to the events or the reality, then obviously you get upset.
Hasnat realized he could not facilitate such relations. He said that the hospital had started getting a bit upset by the disruption caused by Diana's visits. It was becoming a security issue. Diana discussed marriage with Hasnat. She told him she wanted to have a daughter with him. She went as far as to ask her butler, Paul, to find someone who could discreetly marry them. When Hasnat found out, he said, "Do you honestly think you can just bring a priest here and get married?" He thought the idea was ridiculous. This was his breaking point. On March 7, 2021, CBS aired the landmark interview with TV legend Oprah Winfrey. The 2-hour interview caused an incredible fallout, the magnitude of which still cannot be fully understood. Some within Buckingham Palace must have feared the interview, but Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's discussion with Oprah was more revealing, explosive, and potentially damaging to the royal family than many could have imagined.
I think there is now an allegation of racism hanging over a member or members of the royal family. We don't know who, as we said earlier, not the Queen, not the Duke of Edinburgh, but beyond that, we don't know who. Harry and Meghan wouldn't say. And nor do we know the context in which this remark was made. But we do know, from what we've heard, that both Harry, when he heard it, and Meghan, when it was passed on, took offence to it, and therefore that is an issue for them. And also, I think there's slightly wider questions for us as a society. Harry said that he left in part because of racism in the UK. What does that mean for us? Do we need to look at ourselves a bit more? And I think then on the general point for Buckingham Palace, why is it that Meghan was unable to sort of fit in? Why couldn't she get the help she needed when she desperately needed it? Although I should also point out, last week there was that bullying complaint revealed against Meghan that the Human Resources Department had to look into as well. So there's a lot there.
Throughout the TV special, both Harry and Meghan spoke openly, delivering accusations and rebukes that outweighed even Princess Diana's landmark interview more than 2 decades earlier. Harry claimed that when they left the UK for Canada, his father, now King Charles III, stopped returning his calls, leaving them feeling they were on their own. According to Harry, the royal family completely cut him off financially around the first quarter of 2020, when the couple decided to become independent. This left him concerned for his safety and the safety of his family. Perhaps most troubling of all were Meghan's claims that she experienced honest and frightening suicidal thoughts as a result of such intense tabloid scrutiny and isolation at the palace. Meghan also claimed that it was disparaging that the palace refused to correct false statements about her.
Diana and Dodi met long before 1997. They met at various events, film premieres, at the polo, at the horse show, the sort of places that people of their kind would meet at. When they actually fell in love in the summer of 1997, they were already friends. And then, of course, they were together in the south of France, and a relationship which was already established became a deeper and closer relationship. And when they came back to London, they'd already made arrangements to get in touch with each other. They met and they started seeing each other, and it all went on from there.
The princess had written me a letter, and in that letter she said, "The next few months are the most difficult in my life. I fear that my husband is planning an accident in my car, head injuries, in order that he can remarry." Now, when you read those words, a prophecy the princess made 10 months before she died that came true, it's rather eerie. So I have no idea whether people were listening, people were following, people were watching. All I can believe is that no one would sign an order to murder the mother of the future King of England.
It would have been most unwelcome to the British royal family and the British establishment for Diana, the mother of the future king, to have married a Muslim. Had they had two beautiful children, the newspapers would have been writing about Diana and Dodi and their children. You would have had, in effect, in Britain, an alternative royal family. Now that could not have been allowed. It would not have been allowed because it would have taken the focus away from the House of Windsor. They didn't know, one, whether she was pregnant, two, whether they were coming back to London on the Monday to announce an engagement. Then it would have been too late. Diana rang one journalist who she trusted, Richard Kay, to say that she wanted to tell him something important. Well, we don't know what that was. It's very convenient for a lot of people that Diana, Princess of Wales, is no longer here. Had she lived, she would have been playing a major part in the bringing up of her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. When, of course, she was killed, there was no question of that.
Mohammed Al Fayed has insisted that the British Secret Service killed Dodi and Diana. Dodi was Muslim and going to wed the mother of a future King of England, the implication being that Mohammed was confident that Diana was carrying his son's child at the time of her death. Diana's closest confidants in her last years did not need an inquest to know the absurdity of Al Fayed's claims. She was neither pregnant nor planning to marry Al Fayed. She was, in fact, still madly in love with Hasnat.
The princes were brought up within the royal family. There was no dispute about it. There couldn't be. Although in his eulogy at Westminster Abbey, her brother, Charles Spencer, Earl Spencer, made a very brilliant speech in which he referred, and not obliquely, quite openly, to that problem.
She would want us today to pledge ourselves to protecting her beloved boys, William and Harry, from a similar fate. And I do this here, Diana, on your behalf. We will not allow them to suffer the anguish that used regularly to drive you to tearful despair. And beyond that, on behalf of your mother and sisters, I pledge that we, your blood family, will do all we can to continue the imaginative and loving way in which you are steering these two exceptional young men, so that their souls are not simply immersed by duty and tradition, but can sing openly as you planned.
This torch we'll always carry for our nation's golden child. Even though we try, the truth brings us to tears. All our words cannot express the joy you've brought us through the years. And it seems to me you've lived your life like a candle in the wind, never fading with the sunset when the rain set in. And your footsteps will always fall here along England's greenest hills. The candles burned out long before.
On December 8, 2022, the all-access documentary series was released, titled Harry and Meghan. This was the couple's attempt to get across their own side of the story, from their meeting and attempts to integrate into the royal family through to their departure.
She's becoming a royal rock star.
And then
everything changed. There's a hierarchy of the family. You know, there's leaking, but there's also planting of stories.
There was a war against Meghan to suit other people's agendas.
It's about hatred. It's about race. It's a dirty game. The pain and suffering of women marrying into this institution, this feeding frenzy.
I realized they're never going to protect you.
I was terrified. I didn't want history to repeat itself.
The series is unlike anything seen before, only close in comparison to the Panorama interview with Princess Diana in 1995. Years of stories half told and whispered through the media were expanded and clarified. Harry revealed the couple's first introduction via an Instagram post. Meghan spoke about the pressure of meeting Prince William and Princess Kate for the first time. Meghan claims that her wardrobe was strictly controlled during her tenure as a royal. Barred from bright colours to avoid clashing with the Queen, Meghan chose to wear camel and beige to blend in and not stand out. Harry, the Duke of Sussex, is seen in the show proclaiming that royals don't marry for love. Instead, they feel incredible pressure to marry someone who fits the mold. The fallout from this series has caught the entire world in a fierce debate, and everybody has something to say about what the couple addressed.
The Sussex brand, both in the UK and America, is being helped in one way by this Netflix documentary series by bringing the Sussexes back onto our radar screens, if not our TV screens. So there is perhaps a fear that out of sight means out of mind, and by cooperating with Netflix on a documentary like this, it gets us all talking about them again, and it keeps them in the limelight, and it keeps their brand of Harry and Meghan alive.
I think if he wants to get some across, I think that's one thing that we always do. We always hide things, and that's why you end up with, sadly, so much mental health. And so I think it's important that they can. Royals should be able to express themselves to everyone else. But I think the problem is it's the way it's been done. Doing it on Netflix, obviously for money. I think if he'd done it differently in other ways, for example, there was money but it was donated to charities and that kind of thing. I'm not trying to, it's a difficult one. It's a really difficult one, but I think if it had been done differently, maybe people would have seen it differently. That's what I don't get, is what he wants to, what will be the achievement at the end of it, other than causing so much upset to him and his family and his father and his brother. That's the bit I'm confused at. I would love it if they could all sort it out somehow.
The pressure to maintain a flawless public image while dealing with personal turmoil was overwhelming. Diana and Meghan found themselves in a gilded cage, their cries for help often unheard or dismissed. The intense public scrutiny and the rigid expectations of royal life amplified their distress, leading them both to the edge. Their heartbreaking admissions about their suicidal thoughts are a stark reminder of the human cost behind the royal spectacle. Diana and Meghan's courage in speaking out about their mental health struggles has opened up vital conversations about the need for empathy, understanding, and change within the royal institution and beyond. Their stories compel us to look beyond the fairy tale and acknowledge the real, often painful, human experiences at its core. The royal family, bound by centuries of tradition, has always been a symbol of continuity and steadfastness. But Diana and Meghan's experiences have left an indelible mark on the institution, forcing it to confront its values, its relationship with the media, and its treatment of those who marry into the fold. In the wake of Harry and Meghan's decision to step back from royal duties, the Queen herself acknowledged this change. "My family and I are entirely supportive of Harry and Meghan's desire to create a new life as a young family," she said. "Although we would have preferred them to remain full-time working members of the royal family, we respect and understand their wish to live a more independent life as a family while remaining a valued part of my family." This statement, though measured, suggests a shift in the royal family's rigid attitudes. It reflects an understanding that the pressures Diana faced cannot be allowed to repeat themselves. Meghan's story, though entwined with Diana's, offers a glimmer of hope, that perhaps the lessons of the past have been learned, and that a new generation can create their own paths without being lost to the same destructive forces. As the monarchy evolves, may it continue to adapt, not only in its public role, but in its understanding of the people who represent it, embracing compassion, growth, and the changing tides of time. Diana's life, so full of promise and compassion, was tragically cut short. Her death was a devastating reminder of the relentless pressure and scrutiny she endured. As we remember Diana, we also reflect on Meghan's journey and the striking parallels between their stories. Meghan, too, faced immense challenges within the royal sphere, haunted by the same invasive media and rigid expectations that plagued Diana. Yet, there is hope that her path might diverge from the tragic fate that befell the people's princess. Unlike Diana, Meghan and Harry boldly decided to step back from royal duties, seeking a life away from the relentless spotlight. Their move to carve out their own space and prioritize mental health and family offers a new narrative of empowerment, resilience, and self-determination. While Diana's legacy is one of love and enduring impact, Meghan's story continues to unfold. It is a story of breaking free from constraints and forging a path towards a future where compassion, empathy, and personal well-being are at the forefront. We are reminded of the strength and courage both women exhibited. May their stories inspire us to foster a world where history does not repeat itself, where the lessons of the past pave the way for a brighter, kinder future.